Welcome to Self-Publishing with Ally, proudly sponsored by PublishMe, helping indie authors succeed globally with expert translation, tailored marketing, and publishing support. From first draft to international launch, PublishMe ensures your book reaches readers everywhere. Visit publishme.me. And now, here's your host for Self-Publishing with Ally, Dan Holloway.
Hello and welcome to the last Self-Publishing News podcast of 2025. And I wanted to have a little reflect through the year, but there is still news happening. And the news that has been happening this week is Amazon's introduction of its so-called Ask This Book feature, which has been causing quite a lot of controversy and upset in the indie community. So Ask This Book is an AI-generated feature for Kindle readers. It sort of sits alongside the Story So Far functionality. Story So Far is where you go to the place you have read to in a book. You can click a button and it will give you a little bit of a recap of what has happened so far. Ask This Book allows readers to highlight a piece of text and then literally do what it says on the tin. Ask the book about that text. So this might be, what is a character's motivation? Where else have we seen this character? What have they done so far? And what's a little bit of background information on this setting, or so on and so forth. It's the sort of thing that is, of course, only possible with the use of AI, and this has caused issues amongst the writers' community, not least because, and this is the quote from Amazon, "To ensure a consistent reading experience, the feature is always on and there is no option for authors or publishers to opt titles out." And this, and not necessarily the greatest responsiveness to questions about the feature, has sort of caused people to get somewhat upset that it's taking away choice. Obviously, this kind of feature is something that a lot of authors are very pro and a lot of authors are very anti, and those who do not want to be part of something like this don't have the option of opting out. And that's something that's caused a lot of upset, and likewise the lack of, or perceived lack of, transparency, which is an interesting contrast to Spotify, which sort of takes us neatly into a couple of reflections on the year in self-publishing. Because one of the things that Spotify has done is to sort of learn the lesson from such controversies. So various times through the year it has introduced AI features, such as AI-generated cover art for people's playlists and so on. And it didn't at first state what its AI policy was around this, who would be affected, what kind of rights might be either given up by people whose work was being trained to or used to train such features, and so on. It responded to this by very prominently displaying on future releases of AI-related products exactly who was going to be affected by this, what the training data would be for each feature, and specifically what the training data would not be. And in general, it has been the case that Spotify's AI features they've been drawing on listeners and listeners' contributions and uploads rather than those of creators themselves. And it has been very much at pains to make this clear. So Spotify has been introducing AI features through the year, but seems to have doubled down on transparency as its way of maintaining good relations with its creators. So what else has been going on in the world of self-publishing? Obviously, the big AI-related story of the year is the Anthropic lawsuit. This is now drawing to a close. The end of the calendar year, start of the new year is sort of the close for people to register to be part of the class. So this is a lawsuit against Anthropic that became a class action, and the class involved is about 500,000 titles, and each of those titles is going to be eligible for a $3,000 payout. So it's a $1.5 billion lawsuit. It is not without controversy. The actual ruling is that Anthropic conducted or breached people's copyright by using pirated copies of works works downloaded from pirate libraries, shadow libraries. Then the two in the case are Pirate Library Mirror and Library Genesis. So it used pirated copies of works in order to train its Claude AI. This is a breach of copyright, and for that breach, titles in the class will be eligible for $3,000 payouts. So obviously this is a very specific class. It therefore is not necessarily a very useful legal precedent. One of the things, though, that a number of people have pointed out is that this doesn't affect the original ruling, which is that training an AI platform on works is fair use. So it doesn't overturn the fair use ruling. And in theory, people have been speculating, I don't want to speculate too much, but one of the speculations is that this opens the door for tech companies to buy a retail copy of your work. So not breaching copyright through piracy, pay once, pay a retail price, and then use your work to train its AI, claiming fair use. And that would obviously undermine the new but nonetheless growing AI licensing market. So that is definitely something that's going to be featuring significantly in the news in 2026. But it hasn't all been AI, and a couple of things I wanted to pick up on from the non-AI world. And the first is that romantasy has been the genre of the year yet again. This is probably no surprise. So Rebecca Yarros, Sarah J. Maas, for a couple of years now have been the authors who have dominated all the charts. So serial, dark romance, fantasy romance has been the genre that readers have absolutely lapped up. And this year, obviously, we saw, which is interesting from an indie point of view, we saw Senyin Liu's Alchemized become the publishing sensation of the latter half of the year. And that is interesting for us because it started out on one of the most popular but often overlooked indie platforms, which is Archive of Our Own, the fan fiction website that, again, is full of readers who absolutely devour content about their favourite characters. And it started life as a Harry Potter fan fiction. All of the Harry Potter references were stripped out before it was published. It was extremely heavily rewritten to avoid any issues over copyright, sort of rather like 50 Shades, the fan fiction to publishing sensation of more than a decade ago now. But it nonetheless suggests that romantasy is with us to stay. Interestingly, on Spotify's end-of-year list, they were in their roundup talking about the growing popularity of darker content than that, so of actual sort of full-blown horror becoming something that is emerging and breaking out of its niche, and maybe a genre to watch out for in the next year. So that's something for people who are thinking where to turn their writing attention next year. And I think the story of the year for me, to end with, is the expansion of bookshop.org into ebooks. So bookshop.org started fortuitously for it just before the pandemic. It is a site that allows people to buy books online from one central place and then have a cut of sales given to a local bookstop of their choice, bookshop of their choice. So this doesn't necessarily have to be a bookshop near them, just a bookshop that they want to support. Hitherto, it has only been about print titles, but this year, starting in the US and then moving to the UK, it has moved into ebooks. So now people can buy ebooks from bookshop.org and have those purchases support a local indie bookstore of their choice. So this sort of makes it much easier for people who want to support indies of all stripes, whether that's stores or creators. It is very, very easy for indie writers to get their work onto bookshop.org now, especially now it's opened up to ebooks. So platforms like Drafter Digital will distribute direct there. And this is clearly going to be a big game changer. There is, over the course of this year, we saw quite a significant trend of sort of anti-corporate buying, you might say, or if you were to give it a positive spin, you might say pro-artisanal buying. And platforms like this make it much, much easier for consumers to support the creators and the stores that they have come to know and love. And that seems like a very, very happy note on which to end a look at 2025. And I very much look forward to speaking to you again in 2026. Merry Christmas for, I think, as this goes out 2 days ago, and a very, very happy new year.
You've been listening to Self-Publishing with Ally, proudly sponsored by PublishMe, helping indie authors succeed globally with expert translation, tailored marketing, and publishing support. From first draft to international launch, PublishMe ensures your book reaches readers everywhere. Visit publishme.me, and if you haven't already, we invite you to join our association and become a self-publishing ally. You can do that at allianceindependentauthors.org.